It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like. The way you are right now. The way down deep inside you. Not the things that hide you. Not your toys, they're just beside you. But it's you I like. Every part of you. Your skin, your eyes, your feelings, whether old or new. I hope that you remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like, it's you yourself, just you. Well, it's you I like. But it's you I like. Every part of you. Your skin, your eyes, your feelings, whether old or new. I hope that you remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like, it's you yourself, just you. It's you I like. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy, Jim, and Robert Farrago. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Unity Temple in the Plaza, a place where diversity is praised and peace and harmony are the rewards. We have a great program for you this morning. A couple new things have happened since last week, and both of these were in the newspaper, but I find them both very interesting. About 50 years ago, there was an exhaustive research done in a massive study on what life is all about. And 50 years ago, the finding of that from all the physicists and the brilliant minds involved came up with, this is the way the world is. Yay, at last, we know. Well, this week, and they discovered that what we believed for the last 50 years in regards to how the world is, isn't right at all. The world is different. But they just don't know how it's different. Now, this is the way it's done. When I was a kid, my brother and I would play in the garage. He'd be on one side, I'd be on the other side, and we'd take our toy cars and race them towards the other one as fast as we could and try to get them to crash in the middle. Well, that's what scientists are doing to subatomic particles. And they built this massive $4 billion cauldron, basically is what it is, and they get subatomic particles going round, and then they switch tracks on them so they smash together, and by smashing together they discover if there's something more going on than just the protons, the neutrons, and the new buzzword now is the muon. So, there you have it. They know the world is different than what we've always believed, but they don't know how. So if we're here 50 years from now, we'll have a whole new theory on what life is all about. The other thing I learned that I think is very, very interesting, today in the newspaper, it said people, on average, their mind wanders 49% of the time their entire life. 49% of the time. 51% of the time they're on target, they're focusing, 49% they're not. Now this is extremely good news for me, because all the time that I've been speaking and looking out and seeing 49% of the people wandering off, I thought it was my fault. But it's not. It's a human proclivity. So we'll begin the service now with the temple chimes, the opening prayer, Geneva Price, and the call to inspiration. Please join with me if you choose. Together, on this day, we dedicate ourselves to peace on earth. We accept ourselves without harsh judgment and express appreciation for our individuality. We live without fear to meet the events of this day with confidence. We accept others without prejudice to experience a sense of unity with all people. We honor our earthly environment and recognize a oneness with all creation. In harmony with ourselves, our lives, other people, and all of nature, we live this day with a peaceful mind, a peaceful heart, and a peaceful spirit. Thank you, God. Amen.
You are my strength, my rock, my fortress. You are the rock where I take refuge, my shield, my almighty help, my stronghold. You are worthy of all praise. What would I do if I knew that I couldn't fail? If I believed with the wind always fill up my sail? How far would I go? What could I achieve? Trusting the hero in me. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge where true believers dare to tread. Never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What will I do today if I were brave? What will I do today if I were brave? What will I do today if I were brave? What will I do today if I were brave? What if we're all meant to do what we secretly dream? What would you ask if you knew you could have anything? Like the mighty oak sleeps in the heart of the seed, are the miracles in you and me. If there were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge where true believers dare to tread. Never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What will I do today if I were brave? What will I do today if I were brave? What will I do today if I were brave? What will I do today if I were brave? If I refuse to listen to the voice of of fear. With the voice of courage, whisper in my ear. If I were brave enough to move ahead, where true believers dare to tread, never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step will I take today? I am brave. What will I do today? I am brave. What will I do today? I am brave. What will I do today? I am brave. What will you do today? We all are brave.
Thank you, Peggy Chilson. I'm very proud today to present Reverend Shad Groverland, who has taken on the position at Unity Village as Executive Director and CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries, which means he's the one that sees all the churches and oversees all the ministers all over the world. Incredible job that he does very well at. He's our guest speaker this morning. He's been here 3 times. I think you'll enjoy him, and we hope to have him back. Reverend Shad, come forward.
Come forward. Come hither. All right. Did everybody else remember to wear their Unity socks today? Come on, people. Where's your pride? We got to show up. Got to show we care. This is only one of my many pairs of Unity socks, just so you know. This is how serious I take this. Well, thank you, Duke. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's great to see faces in here. What a beautiful experience. Give yourselves a round of applause for having faces in the sanctuary. Man. I'm just so proud of our ministers that have had to been speaking to cameras for the last year. I did it for a while myself, and the energy is significantly different when you have faces in the room. But we also want to bless and thank those that are watching us online, because having that hybrid experience in the room and online, I think, is what is the future of Unity and future of ministry. So we're doing it. We're doing it here right now. All right, we're going to start off with a little bit of visual learning, as I'm going to call it. So we'll bring up this slide. Does anyone notice something funny about this? I'm just going to let it sit there. It's a little bit small for you to read. All right, let me go to the next slide and see if I can point out what we should be looking at here. So we have the front entrance to a door, and it says National Association of Telemarketers. Then to the right, there's a sign that says absolutely no soliciting. In case you're still not quite getting it, let's go to the next slide. This is called hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Now, before I get into today's topic, I think it's going to be important that we make sure we all have a common understanding of what that word actually means. What it is to be a hypocrite, which is kind of a very charged word. It's almost hard to hear us even say the word hypocrite. And just like any good junior high school presentation, I'm going to start off with a definition from Webster's Dictionary. Do you remember that? Everyone would start off their presentation with a definition from Webster's Dictionary. I'm going to do that today. So, hypocrite, a person who puts on a false appearance of virtue or religion. The second is a person who acts in contradiction to his or her stated beliefs or feelings. I think the second definition is what is going to be our anchor for today and what has grabbed my attention. Okay, maybe I'm alone on this, but has anyone else noticed some hypocrisy in our world today? Anyone? Let me see some hands. Own up to that. We've seen some hypocrisy in the world. 2 hands over here. You're seeing more hypocrisy than other people. All right, that's okay. Now raise your hand again if it bothers you. Some of you are like, yeah, it doesn't bother me so much. All right, it bothers me. It bothers me to see so much hypocrisy in our world today. And when I think back on my life, growing up as a youth, hypocrisy was something that really bothered me growing up. Or even from an early age, I remember thinking, I didn't know what the word was, I didn't know what it really meant, I couldn't really attribute what I was experiencing, but I know today it was hypocrisy that was bothering me. For example, you probably know this saying, let's bring this up here. The next slide. Do as I say, not as I do. Did that saying bother anyone else growing up? Did anyone else experience that saying growing up? Yeah. If there is a hypocrites club, then this is probably their slogan. Do as I say, not as I do. Very early on, I remember as a child thinking, why do people say one thing and then do another? Why do they teach one thing and then do a different thing? I was actually perplexed as to why this would happen or how this would happen. Especially in adults, I was just shocked to see that they would say one thing and do another thing. I always thought if you believe in something and you tell people about it and you teach about it, I just naturally assumed you'd be doing it. I guess kids are naive. You just kind of assume if someone's talking about something and they believe in it and they're teaching it, they themselves would be doing it. But that's not necessarily the case. And I think it is really disheartening for children to discover the world is made up of people who say and teach one thing that they themselves don't actually do. And I don't know when that hits most kids, but I can remember for me it was a pretty early age that I realized the world is made up of people that say and do and teach one thing that they themselves don't do. But so much of humanity is hypocritical. So many of us as humans are hypocrites. And it is so prevalent that we have become, I think, mostly blind to it. I think through our average day, we've kind of just accepted it as a part of life. It's just the way it is. We are all hypocrites. So I want to share with you a little story here. A friend of mine, as I was living in Las Vegas, I used to be a minister at Unity of Las Vegas. So as I was living in Las Vegas, a friend of mine invited me out to dinner with a DJ friend of his. And if you've ever been to Las Vegas, there's lots of DJs out there that play the music at the clubs and the discos and stuff like that. So he invited me to come out to have dinner with them. So we all went out together, and let's just say that this DJ had a very big personality, is how I'm going to describe it. He was a good guy, but a bit contradictory in his beliefs and the things he was saying. And at one point in our conversation over dinner, his level of hypocrisy hit an all-time high that I was listening to. He was talking about how that we as humans need to learn to love and understand each other more and have more compassion for each other. And I was, really on board with what he was saying. It really made sense to me. And then he actually said this, which was surprising. He said, "I hate haters and negative people. They should all die." Well, in case you're unfamiliar with the term hater, it just means someone who's judgmental and negative towards other people. Okay, so now I'm sitting there at dinner. I've just heard him say this, and if I had been doing more meditation at that time in my life, I probably would just have let it go. But at that moment, I could not help but respond, so I did. He said, "I hate haters and negative people. They should all die." I said, "Do you realize you just killed yourself?" He said, "What?" I said, "You became the very thing you said should die, a negative hater." Well, you could say that dinner got a little awkward after that. Nobody likes being called out on their stuff. We just don't. But we just spew out hypocrisy all day long, and we don't even really realize we're doing it. He had no concept that he was describing the very person that he was being in that moment, to the point that he thought they should die, which is a pretty extreme viewpoint. But it is a great example of the hypocrisy that we have grown accustomed to in our lives. What he was saying initially was 100% true. We do need to learn how to be more loving and compassionate and understanding of each other. And as much as I am sure that he actually believed that to be true, it did not appear that he had bothered to assimilate that truth into his own life, into his own way of being, so that the language he was using would match the life he was living. It's always about the other people, about them, that person over them, the blemishes on society that are making it bad for all the rest of us. They need to be more kind. They need to be more loving. And that is where hypocrisy is the most prevalent in the human condition. We love to point out the flaws of other people as if they are the root of the problem that we or our collective are experiencing today. Well, this is not a new thing. This has been around since the dawn of humanity. Jesus talked about this in Matthew. He said, "Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' while the log is in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye." This is actually something that happens a lot in Unity. We love to give spiritual advice to other people. We love to point out where they're coming up short, but we haven't necessarily done the work ourselves to have risen above the problems that they are experiencing, to just role model what it would look like if they're able to elevate out of the situation that they're experiencing. So I think this quote actually might be even more relevant today than when it was said in Jesus' time. So I'm going to give you another example now that might hit a little bit closer to home. So get ready to get uncomfortable. So just kind of shifting your seat a little bit, bringing it home. When I do relationship counseling, which I've done for many years in the ministry, I've actually had people say essentially this: "As I grow spiritually, I recognize more and more that my partner is not, and they are becoming intolerable." Duke, have you ever heard this one? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, let me give you a news flash. Spirituality is supposed to make you more tolerant, more understanding, and more loving, especially of your loved ones and friends. If spirituality is making you more intolerant and judgmental of those around you, especially of your loved ones and friends, we might be grossly missing the point of it all. You might as well be saying this, and this is what I hear when people say that. As I grow in spirituality and love, I become more aware of everyone else's flaws and less tolerant of their struggles. But that is, in fact, the path that many people actually go down. And is not specific to spirituality. The educated become less tolerant of the uneducated, the wealthy less tolerant of the impoverished, the working less tolerant of those out of work, the healthy less tolerant of those that are unhealthy, and the old less tolerant of the young, and the young less tolerant of the old. We think everyone else is what is wrong with our world today. Nobody likes to hold themselves accountable. Humanity has become so selfish, we can't even see our own hypocrisy anymore. Look at this world we have. Megachurch pastor charged with defrauding elderly investors. These are headlines I read. Former Huber pastor pleads guilty to stealing $1.9 million. We might all remember televangelist Jim Bakker is indicted on federal charges. Chicago pastor steals $1 million from church funds to buy a new Bentley. That one might be okay. I mean, it's a Bentley after all. Come on. It's a Bentley. I read these and I'm just flabbergasted. How does this still happen today? How is this still happening? How is it that people in positions, spiritual teachers in positions that are teaching spiritual philosophy and spiritual truths, fall victim to the very thing that they are trying to teach people to get out of? They're trying to teach against. Don't do these things, and then they themselves are doing them. Especially at a time and when religion and spiritual gatherings are dwindling in numbers. We don't need headlines like this, because then your general populace looks at this and goes, it's all a farce. Religious people are corrupt. Spirituality is a hoax. It's not real. If the leaders at the top are not even living into what they're saying, then it's all just hogwash, and they throw it out. Well, hypocrisy is running rampant in the human condition, from politics and religion to our day-to-day experience. Even in just our small interactions with each other, there is hypocrisy involved. And really, I guess, why should we expect anything else? If even we as individuals, part of this greater whole that we experience as oneness, we allow it in our own lives. Why would we expect not to see it in politics and religion and everywhere else we look? Let me give you a weird but brilliant example. I'm going to ask you to hold on with me because it is a little bit weird. And I hope this reveals a powerful spiritual truth for you. So I moved back to Colorado after ministering in Las Vegas, and I moved to Westminster, Colorado. And I was looking for an apartment with my wife at the time, so we were reading all the different reviews on the different apartment complexes so we could understand the culture that's there. And the one we were really looking at and considering, there kept being all these reviews about the fact that nobody picks up after their dogs at this community. And that careful when you go out on a walk in the grass, there's always going to be dog droppings. And comment after comment after comment, people saying nobody picks up after their dogs around here. Yeah, this is crazy. It's driving me crazy. And different people living there complaining about it. And finally, there was a comment at the bottom and just said, I have an idea. Why don't you pick it up? All right. Let me break this down for you. A dog does its business, and two people see it. One is the owner of the dog, and the other is a neighbor who is unrelated to the dog but sees it happen. Both people don't like picking up dog poo. Also remember, it would take the exact same amount of effort and time for either person to pick it up. And both are fully capable of picking it up, but both choose not to do it. Okay, so now who is to blame for the poo that is now sitting there in the grass? If you haven't looked up dog shaming, you've got to check it out on the internet. It's pretty funny. Well, of course, we want to say, well, it's got to be the dog's fault. It's the dog's fault that it left it there and didn't pick it up. Actually, most of us would probably say it's the dog owner. It is the owner's fault that left it there. But do you think the universe really cares who thinks they own that animal? Think about it. Do you think the universe cares who thinks they own that animal when it comes to who should have picked that up? Consciousness doesn't care who thinks they own that animal. Now let me twist your noodle a bit more. A third person comes along, innocent bystander, and accidentally steps in it. In the end, does it matter who owned the dog? No. Because both people that witnessed the dog doing its business, both of them created the scenario, allowed the scenario to happen that passed suffering onto a third innocent person that was completely uninvolved. I really need you to get this point. Both were equally responsible for the suffering that was passed on to the third person who had nothing to do with the incident. Of course, the example I gave there doesn't encompass the gravity of the real situation at hand, but it shows the hypocrisy of human thinking. Most of us probably would have thought beforehand, that's the owner's fault, not my problem. They didn't pick up after their dog, not my problem. And here is where I want to go with this whole point. Hypocrisy creates suffering. Hypocrisy creates suffering. It is not a victimless crime because it goes contrary to universal divine law, which I'm going to explain. Our higher awareness, or what we call in unity our Christ consciousness, this awareness is honorable. It is just. And it is an aspect of our being. It is an honorable, just aspect of our being. It exists in the realm of truth that is unwavering and consistent. Hypocrisy now is in complete contrast to its very existence. And when we are being hypocritical, we are at odds with our own higher awareness. Living life this way creates an internal struggle resulting in internal suffering. Suffering in ourselves, and when we act on it, when we act on our hypocrisy, or we don't act because of our hypocrisy, we create suffering on those around us. Hypocrisy creates suffering. It may result in physical illness, mental illness, stress, anxiety, anger, and even violence if it's taken far enough, not because these are punishments from on high. It's not that there's some outside force that's going to punish us because we're being hypocritical. No. They're actually just the results of the friction that occurs inside of us when we are pulling away from our own higher awareness, pulling away from our true Christ nature. So let me try to boil this down for you. One of the hardest things for me to watch is bad drivers complain about other bad drivers. Tell me you've seen this happen. The ones that complain the most about bad drivers, I have found, are some of the worst drivers I've ever seen. And one thing I've found common is that when one driver points out the faults of another driver, or another similar driver as bad as they are, they get angry. Have you noticed anger happens at a point in time? Why does that anger come up? I believe we get angry because we know that we're being hypocritical. We all know that anger creates stress and adrenaline and illness inside the body. Now, is it possible, consider this, is it possible that seeing other people do what we ourselves do makes us angry because on some level it is pointing out our own hypocrisy? Reminding us that we continue to choose a more difficult life rather than living up to the standards of our own higher awareness. From Charles Fillmore in the book, The Revealing Word, he defines a hypocrite. He said in classic Greek, the word meant an actor in a theater. So the word came to mean anyone who pretends to be one thing while really he is something far different, appearing to be lovingly thoughtful for others, while thinking only of self and reputation is to deserve only the reward of a hypocrite. No wise man would seek the reward of empty applause, which might satisfy the boastful giver. A modest man asks the approval of spirit only. The Spirit of God, Spirit of life, Spirit of the divine, flows in and through our lives, in and through our awareness at all times, exposing us to truth, inviting us to grow and expand. It is Spirit's standards that we should be trying to measure up to. But to resist it, to ignore it, to push it aside, to live in disharmony from it, to be in hypocrisy, is to struggle and to be at odds with the very essence of our own being. Your higher awareness says, just pick up the dog poo. That's what it says. Just pick it up. You saw it. It's there. There's a bag station nearby. Just pick it up. And when you don't, an internal struggle begins because of your own hypocrisy. Your higher awareness says, just start taking public transportation if you're sick of all the traffic. That's what it says. Stop buying those products if climate change bothers you. Stop supporting those companies if corporate corruption bothers you, if monopolies bother you. Stop supporting those companies. Stop voting for the same kind of people if you're tired of getting the same kind of government. Stop eating that food if animal cruelty bothers you. Start investing in spirituality if you want a more spiritual world. These are the very simple statements that your consciousness is making, that most of us are ignoring on a day-to-day basis because we don't want to deal with it. I think the biggest misnomer about the universal law of karma, or the law of cause and effect as we often call it, is that we are beholden to some outside force that is acting upon us. But that is not the case from my experience. This is the truth as I see it. Each of us is beholden to our current state of awareness. Each of us is beholden to our current state of awareness. When we become aware that something is not right, we are now beholden to it. The moment we become aware that something is not right, we are now beholden to doing something about it. It's no longer okay to just let it happen. Once we become aware of it, the universe says, I'm not going to let you ever do that again. You're now aware of it. It's now not okay anymore. Once you are aware, you're beholden to that. If we have the awareness to notice that it is not right to litter, we are now called upon by our own awareness to do something about it when we see it happen. And now when you see trash and make excuses as to why you shouldn't have to pick it up because it's somebody else's litter, the inner hypocrite starts to pull away from that higher consciousness that is telling us, just pick it up. Just pick it up. Maybe right now you're going to want to use a glove or a bag first, but just pick it up. And when we don't, that internal struggle deepens. It starts to become poisonous because there's a battle going on within our consciousness and within our bodies. All right, now here's where it gets real for us. There are things, each of us, right here, right now, in this room, watching online, things that we know for a fact are sitting in our own awareness right now. They are stirring in our consciousness right now. A truth, a realization, an awakening, a shift, an impulse, maybe just something somebody said around us is stirring in our consciousness right now. It has been planted. And it's something that we can either ignore or we can try to avoid. But I guarantee each and every one of you has something right now that you know is there. We could try to move away from it because it's inconvenient to act on it, or because we're apathetic about wanting to do anything about it, or we're so distracted in our world we just don't have time to get to it. But it has been planted in our awareness, but we have chosen to avoid it and continue to live in struggle and be in hypocrisy instead. Because the lower nature of our ego doesn't want to deal with it. We don't have the time, we don't have the energy, we don't have the resources to deal with it. It's somebody else's problem, or it's just not mine to do right now. Maybe it sounds hard, not fun, or terribly inconvenient, but by not acting on it, when we know it is there, it is now in our awareness, we are now beholden to it. When we do not act on it, it is creating an internal struggle. It is creating friction, consciously or subconsciously. You may not know it's happening. You may not know this struggle, this friction is happening. Maybe you're just feeling a pain in your stomach, or you're feeling a pain in your shoulder, or you're having a problem relationship with your spouse or a loved one. Maybe it's showing up in all sorts of different ways, but it simply just came from the fact that you are in internal struggle with just doing what you know is now right in your consciousness. And if it's not dealt with now, it may get carried on into the next life in what people might call karma. Again, not because God is punishing us from one lifetime to the next, but because we are still at odds with our own consciousness. And we carry that with us until we finally address it, until it is fixed, until it is dealt with. All right. Here's the awesome news. I know that was a little heavy. Everybody just take a nice deep breath. Just let that go. Sometimes a reality check's a little heavy. I understand that. But here's the really good news. The more in alignment you are with the truth that you know, the more beautiful your life becomes. And it is that simple. I'll tell you that this poo example, sorry I have to use that word so much, but it just works. It actually changed my life. I read that, and when that one person just said, I got an idea, why don't you pick it up? We actually wound up moving into that community, and they were all correct. A lot of people were not picking up after their dogs. And I would always take 2 bags with me when I walked my dog, and I'd pick up after my dog, and I'd pick up 5 or 6 of the other ones that were around me and put it away. And I figured if maybe 10% of the other people in the complex did what I'm doing, this place would be perfectly clean. No one would have to complain. No one would have to do a witch hunt to find out who's doing it and try to figure out who's the problem makers. It just simply said, I can do that. I'm standing here. I already have a bag in my hand. I'm already going to the garbage anyway. I could pick up 5 or 6 around me and clean things up. And I do that now. I pick up other animals' droppings everywhere I go. It's just something I do now. But the point is, it's not work for me now. I don't get upset at it now. It just becomes a part of, if it's there, I do something about it. It's just a part of my life. I want the next person who walks in that grass area to see a nice, clean patch of grass and to enjoy it. And it was really no more effort for me to help create that experience for someone I don't even know and probably never meet, that won't be stepping in something because I just happened to pick it up because it felt like the right thing to do. You'll no longer see the things you know you should be doing as a struggle, inconvenient, or an effort because it just becomes a part of who you are as an authentic human being. Those things eventually actually become what you want to do. When you hear your higher voice talking to you and it gives you that impulse, it'll just be what you want to do. You'll stop fighting and resisting it. It just becomes what you want to do. A seed planted in awareness will grow uninhibited. So maybe it's time to forgive that person, to love who you are, to stop fearing what you cannot control, to start stepping out on a limb to do what is right when you know it is time to do what is right, or whatever it is in your consciousness that is stirring right now. To give more, commit more, invest more of yourself in what you know your higher awareness is calling you to do. You are being exposed to transformational realizations all the time into your consciousness. Listen to them. Allow them to flow. Stop resisting them. And I say this as someone who is constantly doing this work myself. When I hear that little voice, and I know it's going to be inconvenient at the time to do it, I'm trying more and more to do it, to follow through. That little voice says, you should probably call that person back. That didn't end well in that conversation. And I go, that's going to be awkward. And the voice goes, yep, you got to do it. Pick up that phone. And I do it now. It says, you know what, you should probably send that letter. I think someone is struggling and they haven't heard from you in a while and they need to right now. I'm busy. Yep, you are, but you need to write that letter. Those little things happen all the time in our consciousness. And when you just go ahead and do it, you feel so good afterwards. You just take time to write that letter, send it. Oh, that felt good. I picked up the phone, I called it, I solved that problem. Nothing had to grow out of it. We ended it. It's good. We're healed. Boom, life feels good. I feel honorable. I feel in the flow. I feel like I'm doing right. I don't have that hypocritical poison inside of me. I just feel like I'm right with my own consciousness. So humanity desperately needs our authenticity right now. It needs us expressing our highest and best self. And this is the time to rise to the occasion and to answer the call of our own higher awareness. Because the more authentic we are, the more we influence others to be the same. And that is how we are going to transform the world, one person at a time. So let's close this out by doing something applicable today. I want to give you a tool today to help you move forward. The first step to recovery is admitting we have a problem. Is everyone ready for this? So I invite you to repeat this with me. I am a hypocrite. You ready? I am a hypocrite. Now that sounds like people very reluctant to admit anything right now. It's okay to say this. I know it feels weird. I want you just to own this. Here we go. I am a hypocrite. One more time. I am a hypocrite. Now let's go to the next slide. Say this with me. I am a hypocrite, and now I'm going to do something about it. And now I'm going to do something about it. You have heard this talk today, and it's now going to be in the back of the head as you go throughout this day. There's nothing you can do about that, and I'm sorry I did that to you. Your own hypocrisies are going to stand out way more than they ever have. And here's your opportunity to do something about it. And that is the truth as I experience it. Thank you.
Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer.
So I invite you to take a deep breath. Sometimes you hear a talk and it just kind of makes you feel good, and sometimes you hear a talk and you go, ugh, I didn't want to hear that today. But both are necessary on the path. So I do invite you to take that deep breath and to just relax and to release and to settle into the fact that we are sitting in such an incredible blessing that we call life. Every moment we are given an opportunity to express the divine that is moving through us. And sometimes we choose to do otherwise. Sometimes we choose the easy road. We choose to ignore or to avoid. We choose not to listen. And maybe it worked for a moment. Maybe it didn't take as much time, didn't take any energy. We feel like we skirted the problem. But something doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right about that process when we try to avoid or skirt around what's calling to us. And most, if not all, the issues that we see in the world today came from a point when a person heard a voice that said, you should probably do something different here. You should probably take the time to help more people, to do an action that'll help clean things up and make things better. And anything we find uncomfortable about our world today probably came when that person did not listen to that voice. They said that might take more work, more energy, more effort, more money. I don't want to do that now. And it grew and expanded, and now we're faced with the result. But then there's all those billions of times throughout every day that people say, no, I am going to do the right thing. I am going to take a moment to help another. I am going to give more of myself. I am going to listen. I'm not going to rush through this, but I'm going to make sure I do it right this time. Not because there's some complicated system of laws and rules in the universe that might punish me, so I have to make sure I'm in alignment, but rather because it simply feels better when I do it that way. When I make the effort, it's usually just a small more effort. to do the right thing I know is the right thing because my consciousness is telling me it's the right thing. It's so much better in the long run. It didn't take that much more energy, that much more effort, and the payoff was huge. So what if that became part of my mantra? To slow down a little bit, to tune in a little more, start making more of those decisions in alignment with what the voice asks me to do. And oftentimes, in order to be able to hear that voice, we need to slow down, we need to listen in the silence. Each of us has been put here not to just get through life, but to experience life as life itself. And so we embrace this opportunity. We give thanks. And so it is.
Thank you for your loving presence. Thank you for healing. Thank you for the wisdom to live each day to the fullest. For you are the source of our life.
This time we take a moment to recognize the wonderful things we have in our lives and we express our gratitude towards. I'd like to begin with our musicians for the day, Peggy Chilson, of course, Jim Mayer, Robert Farrago, and the lovely Miss Geneva Price. I came here many, many years ago, but this is about 15 years ago. There's a little French restaurant down the street, a cafe called Le Bon Boucher. And they were closed on Sunday, so everything they had left over on Saturday they would give to us. And there was a fellow named Bill Kellison, one of our volunteers, who religiously, every Sunday morning for 15 years, would go down there and come back these huge boxes of French pastries and rolls and that kind of thing. Sometimes when I'm coming to church, I would see him walking up the drive, and you couldn't even see him. You could just see boxes stacked up. Well, unfortunately, Bill died yesterday, and he is a relatively young man. 2 weeks ago, he came out of Jack's Stack Barbecue, tripped, fell, hit his head, went into a coma, and never recovered. So they disconnected him yesterday. You might recognize him. He was a wonderful man, a sweet man, a simple man, and a never-ending volunteer. He always wanted to serve. So we bless him as he moves on his way. And I'll close the service with the prayer for protection, and then I'll ask you to join with me in the peace song. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. and all is well. Please join with me in the peace song.